Hello guys, welcome adventurers, Cressup here, and I just thought I'd bring you this panel that I did with AdventureX recently. AdventureX, normally an in-person fantastic game expo that takes place in London every November, and sadly this year they couldn't be a in-person event because the organizer stepped down. There was a lot of things they had to organize, but they decided to still do a digital event, and as part of that there was a Steam sale. They're also doing a game jam, which I think this will still be going on when this comes out. So check that out as well if you go on their website, adventureexpo.org. But yeah, as part of the Steam sale, they also did a couple of talks and discussions on one of the nights. And I was very lucky to be able to do a panel for part of that. So this is what you're going to see now. It was a panel called How to Make Your Game Stand Out. And it was me talking to people in the industry with their tips and advice for indie game developers to get better discoverability in their games, because that's such an issue whenever I speak to indie devs. You know, it's so hard to get your game out there and promote it. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to speak to a couple of really cool people. We've got publishers, we've got people from Fellow Traveller, which is an amazing publisher of indie games. We've got games journalists as well, and streamer PRs, and just get their advice basically from the other side of what they like to see and what they don't. I hope you enjoy it, and big thank you again to AdventureX for letting me do this, and well done to Amy and the team, because it was a lot of effort they had to put in to get it all done, and really appreciate the effort they did put in. So check it out, and of course, as always, give me a like and subscribe. I'll catch you on the other side. Okay, hello everybody. I believe we're live. Hooray! And yes, welcome everybody. I think we're live now. It looks like we might be. I'm very excited. We've got a great panel in store for everyone. We've got some great guests here. Hello and welcome. The name of this panel is How to Make Your Game Stand Out. It's a very simple title for a very complex problem. There are thousands of indie games out there, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Discoverability obviously is the key, and you might have a great game, but that's just half the battle. So I'm going to chat to some people now. We've got three lovely guests here. They're going to give some guidance because they are people whose jobs it is to, in some way or another, pick out games and promote them, whether that's writing about them, streaming them, publishing them. So we're going to find out a little bit about how they go through that process. I'm just going to check that people can hear us. I think we've been unmuted and everything. I think we have. Apologies if you did hear a little bit of our conversation earlier as well, but hopefully it was all very civil. But yeah, let me introduce my guests. So we've got Spencer Hayes. Hello, Spencer.
Hello.
Who is a gaming scout at Fellow Traveller Games, which is an excellent games label. It's published games like Citizen Sleeper, Suzeraine, 1000 Times Resist, some really great games. Next, we've got Rachel Watts. Hello.
Hello.
Who's a games journalist and also co-host of the Indieventure podcast, which talks about everything indie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Kaalin.
Hello.
Who is a streamer and also is influencer relations for Play2 PR and Mooncat Games. So hello everybody, thanks for joining. I should also say who I am. I am Laura, or Cressup. I am a journalist. I normally work for the BBC, but I play lots of indie games, and I stream a little bit on Twitch and YouTube under the pseudonym of Cressup, where I chat to indie game developers and all that good stuff. So we're going to, I believe, still have some time for questions from the audience. So if you want to whack your questions in the chat wherever you're watching this, and hopefully someone will show me them at some point. But please no questions such as why did you not write about my game or why did you not publish my game? Nothing like that, please. Right, okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
We're going to start with a general question for everyone, and it's quite simple. But it's basically, what's a recent game you all saw that stood out to you? Not necessarily one you actually worked on, but just one you maybe seen. And what was it about that game that got your attention? Was it the name, the art style, the story, voice acting, the trailer style? And Spencer, I'll start with you.
Okay.
You weren't expecting
Yeah.
that, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was like, all right, I got at
You're like,
least a
I'm
few
going to
minutes
settle
to
down
to
here.
figure this
Right
one
at the
up.
back.
All right, I guess somebody had to go first, so it might as well be me. I had one. So I saw this question in advance, and I was like, oh, what am I thinking of, right? But I
I was
actually,
timed.
yeah, it was. It's rare, right? Because so much of my job is like seeing things coming up, so it's rare for me to kind of get these like really organic like opportunities. But I was traveling for like this past month abroad, and so I wasn't as plugged in as usual, right? And so I saw the game Mouthwashing, which is blowing up right now. So
Oh,
I'm sure a
yes.
lot of folks have heard of it, but I hadn't at the time, right? And I was just, one night I was in my hotel room and I was just scrolling as you do. I was like, Mouthwashing, like that's a weird name for a video game. Like I know you can name a game whatever you want, but that's very strange.
Yeah.
I started looking at it and I'm like, what's this weird bandage man? Like what's up with what's his deal, right? And I just sort of fell down the hole where I'm like, okay, like this is happening. And I'm sure a lot of people have sort of gone on that similar journey recently, but it was really cool to see it from this like really organic kind of not professional, not industry way of just like, okay, that's it literally caught my eye. So that's my answer to the question. Yeah, I don't know, mouthwashing. It's pretty good. If y'all haven't heard of one of the more popular games right now.
I have heard of it. I still got to play it, but yeah.
Oh,
Rachel.
great.
So mine is, and this is before I actually looked up the game and found out who published it. So mine was Great God Grove by Limbo Lane, which is being published by Fellow Traveller. But the reason why this game caught
Rachel,
my, I know. But the reason why it caught my attention is, I'm sure Spencer will agree with me, like the art style of this game is so like different and unusual. It's cartoony, but in like kind of old Cartoon Network style. I just think the name of the game was really like eye-catching. So yeah, for me, it was like a combination of, it's interesting with mouthwashing as well. Like it's the name of the game, it's an image that sticks with you, and that's what this game did for me. The title of the game is like, ooh, I'd like to know more about that. And also the art style is something that just really stuck with me. So yeah, mine's Great God Grove.
And that's like, I think that's actually really interesting because like that's the same thing that stuck with me when I was signing the game.
Really?
I probably talk about it, but yeah, like because initially, got the pitch. I talked to the Limberland crew. They're great. They're lovely. And I'd played the previous game, Smile for Me, right, which has like a similar kind of name, a similar kind of art style.
Yes.
It's really good. But when it came time to like do the pitch, I was like, okay, this art style is really good, right? They already had the name at that point, and so it's kind of cool to see like sort of the game's almost out, right? But like sort of at the different ends of the process to be like, this is the thing that stuck out to me, and also the thing that is now stuck out to you.
For sure.
And Kaalin.
Yeah, sorry, John.
For me, it's Karma the Dark World. And I guess like what appealed to me the most is I like games that are a little bit weird. They have a weird story. Maybe they're a little bit dark along the way. And it was really just visually, the visuals and the sound, just watching the trailer, even and then that led me to play the demo, and then just like being in that world. It's like it's very like George Orwell 1984 totalitarian regime, and you're kind of working your way through, and it's like psychological walking simulator. So good. Absolutely loved everything about it, and I actually loved everything about it. I saw a job to do content creation for it over on TikTok for a couple of months, and I was like, hello, I've played your game, I really like it. I see you're looking for someone to make TikToks. I make TikToks. I love your game. I've already played your game. Can I please work on your game? And so I'm doing that for the next few months. But yeah, I just everything about it, for especially like for that kind of spooky horror, God's man, it's been good.
It could definitely, I think, atmosphere is a big thing sometimes. If you can get you can create an atmosphere quickly, especially in a trailer, which can be quite difficult to do. Which we can have a little chat a bit about in a little bit. I thought we'd just very quickly go round and just sort of kind of explain a little bit about the machinations of what we do. And Spencer, I thought I'd go to you just to ask a very simple question, really. What is a gaming scout, and what is your average day-to-day like?
Ooh.
You don't need to tell
Email.
us the whole
A
routine,
lot
you
of
know, like,
email.
well, I get up, I get to the loo, and
Yeah. At 8:15 a.m. every morning, I wake up.
yeah,
Right. And the real like
just the
the
general. That's
The
yeah.
discipline.
Yes, I'm the scout at Fellow Traveler. And the way that I've sort of jokingly talked about it before, because it's a really weird job, right? Like my mom asked me, she's like, "What is it you do?" And I'm like, well, okay, it's a lot of stuff." But the sort of the joke that I make, right, is that it's like the stereotype of that guy who goes to like local concerts and he sits in the back and he's like, "Yeah, I like your stuff. You should sign to my label." Kind
Nodding the head.
Yeah. Glasses on, like sunglasses on inside, despite the fact it's like 9 p.m. indoors. But really, kind of what it is, oh, my camera has really gone green for me. But okay, yeah. So I'm back. Yeah. So really, what it is I talk to devs sort of about what they're working on. Their ideas coming up. Either they'll come to me or I'll go out to them. Sort of have a conversation about what they're working on, see how that kind of lines up for Fellow Traveler and what we do and what we're looking for. Kind of coach them through that process, and then bring it to my team internally, and then we talk about the game, and then I hand it off to the team who does all the hard work of developing and marketing and publishing and all that stuff, and I kind of get to wash my hands of it like a cool uncle, right? And then 3 years later, a game comes out, and people congratulate me, even though I do very little on it. But yeah, that's sort of thing. But then the day to day though is very much email. I do get to play builds, which is nice, but and I think the way that all of us who work in the industry kind of play games, where it's like people are like, yeah, it must be so fun. You play games all day, and you're like, well, yes, but also it's playing for work, So a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I guess on that point as well, Rachel, because it's interesting. You're on the journalist side. You're sometimes pitching, I imagine, your own articles about games, and then sometimes you're being told what to write about. So how much can you sort of bring your interest into what you write about?
So when you're on staff, it's a lot easier, because especially if you're in an editor role, because you can be like, this game looks cool. This is something I'm interested in. I'm gonna write something about it today, and you can literally do that. But being a freelancer is a lot different, because you're essentially, not only are developers pitching their game to you, you then as a freelancer have to pitch that idea to an editor. And if you have a good working relationship, that can be easier, but often you have to really find an interesting angle. And so when a dev comes to you with an interesting angle, that makes the pitching a lot easier. So to get kind of like noticed in that regard, one thing I kind of tell devs is, there's a really great example that when I was working at PC Gamer was the Inculinati devs. Sorry, their name is the dev name is their game name. They emailed me, and the subject line was like, "This is a game about the memes of medieval monks." And I was like, that's a headline. They basically pitched me a headline. And so I think I actually used that. And it was a very early demo. But even then, I was like, I saw the email. I saw that, their subject line immediately interested me. Lots of lovely pictures, and went, you know what? This is something that I'm going to write about today. And I think with freelancers, it should be the same. If you almost try and think like a journalist in terms of what a headline for your game would look like, what's the most interesting aspect of your game, I'm immediately going to be interested in that. Like, you're making me interested. I want to write about your game. So I think in terms of like what captures my interests, it can be something I'm totally not interested in, or something that is totally like my shit. But in terms of like, you're not just pitching me a game, you're pitching me, but like, why should I care and be interested about this aspect of your game or your team, like something like that. And so, I think that's for every journalist as well. It's like making us interested in what you're working on, which is quite difficult a little bit. It is difficult.
Boiling it down to like, what is this element that sounds interesting, and that you can sort of, the thing you're going to shout up the stairs to somebody.
Absolutely. And sometimes, like, when devs come to like look at coverage of their game, they might not realize something about it that journalists are latching onto. But if you can kind of work out what that golden nugget is before, or at least try, then that will really help instead of yeah. So I think that's my answer.
Thank you very much. I appreciated it. And Colin, as well, with your job, you're almost, I guess you're kind of looking at games in almost two different headspaces, because obviously you've got your streamer hat on, but then you're also potentially working with influencers as well, and telling them what they might be interested to make content on. So I guess with the kind of content creator hat on, I kind of know the answer to this, being someone who streams myself, albeit not successfully. Do certain games make better content than others? And what's kind of a process that a streamer is going through when they're picking games?
I mean, I suppose like the long and short of it is yes. Some games just have that, I guess it's like that wider resonation with like a wider audience. So if you're playing a game and it's going to appeal to like more variety creators, more people are going to pick it up. If it's got things in it that are going to make people laugh, it's going to make people care, it's going to make people cry because they're scared, or maybe it's something fun they can play with their friends. Really just sort of like any game where you can bounce off it, because I think the main thing for most content creators is that you're creating a space either for entertainment, or maybe you got like cozy vibes, so you want people to come and feel relaxed and chilled. And so yeah, certain games are better for that. However, I do think that all games have the potential to have like great content around them. You just really have to find the right content creators for your niche that are going to
Yeah,
be able
totally.
to do that. Because there are a lot of content creators, and some people play some weird stuff. And even if I'm not like, that's not something I would play. If someone is playing like the weirdest game ever, that's just not like, I'm never going to play it. But if it's for them, I'm there. I'm like, I'm just going to watch, and their communities are there. And yeah, so it's really just yes, and also no, because
Yeah.
you just got to find the right people for your game. And that can be hard because there's a lot of content creators, and discoverability is very hard on most platforms. And I guess that's like what part of my job as a player too in Mooncat Games. That's again doing a little bit like what Spencer is doing, is like I'm scouting all the time.
Yeah.
I'm looking for people for whatever games we're working on. I'm literally, scrolling through all platforms trying to find the right content creators for the games.
And I guess now, after we've got a little idea about what we all do, I thought we'd just go through different ways in that case that developers can catch people's eye. And we'll talk about gamers in general and kind of like the general public in a bit. But I thought, obviously, potentially the first person that a developer might want to get the attention of is a publisher. So I turn to you, Spencer, as a gaming scout for Fellow Traveller, and I was quite interested to just learn in terms of pitching a game to a publisher. Do you have any examples of mistakes that developers tend to make? And of course, let's keep it general. Rather than
We'll put
naming
anyone
any
on
names.
blast, right? We'll keep things fun. Yeah, I mean, I think that really the kind of key thing that a lot of folks stumble over is knowing why they're making the game they are, right? Like human imagination is infinite or whatever, right? Like you could make anything, like why are you making this? Like what is going on that gets you excited about this? We're only on, this planet for a finite number of years. Why are you spending, 2 to 4 of them making this? And really having that sense of like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing with my project, this is my team, is really, really valuable. Because what I tell devs is, if you can't get excited about a game, right? How am I going to get excited about the game? How am I going to get my team excited about the game? How are they going to get like customers and journalists, right, excited about the game, right? Like it's really got to start from this kind of core. It's got to come from the core of the game, right? Like you got to know, why am I doing this? Why am I excited about this? Like what is the value in this game? Like what is going on, right? Like what is that kind of core nugget, which is very, I guess, broad and kind of theoretical, but I think it's really, really valuable, especially to see. And I think that comes through a lot in sort of the final products, right? The final games, and I'm sure that you all can see that, or maybe speak to that, of like when a game has a sense of identity and a sense of this is made by a person or a team of people, right? Having that come through in the final game, it's really valuable.
So I guess in a kind of practical sense, is that just telling a bit of a story about yourself, do you mean? Or do you just mean just being passionate and...
I mean, it could be, but I think that if you get, it's tough, because when you get a pitch, right, there's a lot of information, right? And I think that a lot of folks don't really know about it, but you get like a full pitch deck, right? You'll get a budget, you'll get, a build, you get a lot of these, and a lot of publishing comes down to a gamble, right? A show of faith in kind of the team, because no game that starts development ends the development in the same way, right? It's a really long process. There's a lot of change, and so much of it is faith in this team and this idea that it's not going to look like this when it comes out, but it's I think they can do something really cool, right? And so I think that, like, on a practical level, it's having this sort of core to the game that everything around it will kind of switch and shift and mutate a little bit over the creative process, but having a really core sense of the identity of the project when you're pitching, I think, is key. And if you don't have that, like, really kind of core idea locked in, I think it might be too early to be pitching, which is that's the very practical, I guess, advice here of, like, know what you're making. And if you know what you're making, then it's time to start pitching, right?
And I'll kind of throw this to both you, Rachel and Kaalin, as well, because in a way, in a different sort of way, you're also getting, as you've kind of touched on already, developers who are pitching their games to you either to write about or to promote. So equally, when you're getting these pitches in an email, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, Rachel, really, but what things work and what don't. Like, I guess, is it just being able to be quite clear and succinct, or what other things do you like to see?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I touched upon it briefly before, but I also want to put it in perspective. Like, when I was on as a freelancer, I received maybe 10 emails a day about, like, from different devs and their games. And I'm sure you've heard this before. For like being on staff as a journalist, that number could go from anywhere from 20 to 30 emails a day. So it's just a lot of emails to go through. I do think emails is the best outreach. We might touch upon social media a little bit later. But the absolute best thing to do is, like I said before, with, like, maybe pitching a headline, but also make your emails kind of fun. Like, it's kind of like, I always resonate with emails that have GIFs, that have images. If I just see an email that's just plain text, I'm just going to be like, you know what, this is kind of boring. Yeah. That's like that initial impression is so important. So I love an emoji. I'd put emojis in the subject line, emojis anywhere. I love the sparkle emoji. If you have information for me, I like it bolded. I like emojis next to it. I want as much information as quick and as possible. So bold, lots of emojis, colorful images, GIFs work wonderfully. Just anything. And then that's your initial impression. Now you've got my attention. I'm going to scroll. So as I'm scrolling, then I want things like, are interviews available? As a journalist, that matters massively to me, if I can talk to the dev team. A little bit about what your team's about. Like Spencer was talking about, what's your point of view as a dev team? Like, what are you trying to do with this game? Is there an interest? I'm always looking for hooks. Like, I'm looking for as many angles to cover your story as possible. So now with the initial, like, top of the email, you've got my attention. Now it's time to get to the point of view of the game. You as a team, anything interesting about you? Are you students? Like, are you a single dev who spent 10 years or whatever? Journalists love stories like that. Anything that can be, like I said, like, kind of get into a sort of headline. It's that's a bit not nice, because your game could be so much more. But unfortunately, my job as a journalist is to get people to be interested, click, and then I can put everything else that I love about your game in 800 words, in 400 words. So, like I said before, getting that initial hook and understanding what that might be is really important. And then if not, just lots of colorful images, lots of eye-catching stuff that I'm going to be like, yeah. So GIFs very quickly as well. GIFs are great because gameplay is hard to convey in screenshots. And so if I'm seeing something that's moving, if your game is quick, if it's like feisty, if stuff is happening, you want to convey that quickly again. So GIFs are perfect. I love a GIF. So anything that like tells me like what your game's about, how I play it, how I interact with it in 2 seconds or less. Like almost like a TikTok in that respect. But you know, when you're just like, no, ooh. So yeah, that's mine. But for emails are definitely the way to go for sure.
And Kaalin as well. In terms of emails and things you get sort of sent, what works.
Yeah, I feel like Rachel smashed it on that side. So I don't really have much to add there, but I can certainly like talk about creators, because creators are so important to your game. They are literally, they're going to be your bread and butter for getting people to like organically play your game and interact with it in a genuine way. So if anyone is coming to me with their pitch, it's so straightforward. Honestly, the biggest don't is not be rude. It's surprising how many people are rude.
As in, do you mean as in creators, you mean, or?
Yeah. I mean, I say surprising how many people. It's still like a small percentage in a large pool, but that's like your big way. Just don't be rude, and just know that keys are like limited. You're maybe not always going to get what you're looking for, but to kind of like increase your chances, it's not that hard. It's similar to what Rachel was saying. Introduce yourself quickly. Let me know who you are, what your personality is like. Give me all the links to all your content. If you just say my username is this and I have to go to every platform and search you, and maybe I can't find you properly,
Great point.
all your content and I can just one click everywhere. And then I guess like on the creator side is we do get a lot of scam requests where people pretend to be other creators, and what they do is they have like the most similar email, but they'll have like a 0 instead of an O, or they'll swap like 2 letters about, or it's actually, I mean, every game campaign I've worked so far this year, you're talking, you know, up to 100 to 150 people like trying to get a game key who are nefarious. So another good thing is on all of your social media, like have your actual email address, because if I can't verify you, I will not send a key. I can't send a key. So it's just like links to everything. I'm the same. The sparkle emoji is my favorite emoji. I just feel like
absolutely.
And so just like show your personality, but it does on the content creator side, it doesn't have to be this massive thing. It's not a job application. I just want to be able to see your links, get your vibe to make sure, you know, that the game is right for you, you're right for the game, etc. And I think another thing I'd like to say is that it does not matter your size. I want to say to all of the creators out there, like, if you consider yourself a smaller streamer, a newer streamer, that doesn't matter, especially when it comes to indie games. Like, devs are just looking for people who are going to enjoy their game. They love to see it. And so if you're sat out there, and that goes the same for devs, you don't always have to be pitching to creators with hundreds and hundreds of thousands, because you know what? They're not going to take a game key. They're going to want cash anyway. So
now that is a point I actually wanted to raise, because as a small streamer myself, sometimes I do get, you know, like indie devs reaching out being like, oh, here's a key, do you want to play the game? And I never, you know, I'm not asking for payment, I'm not expecting that, but it's nice that they've offered the key. But I'm interested into like, where is that line really? And it's quite difficult, because I have seen sometimes some indie devs being surprised that they've been asked to like pay basically for their game to be played, but then it's obviously, if it's a big streamer, that is their work. Where is the line? What should indie devs know about this?
The line is hard,
yeah,
because I totally can understand, you know, a lot of devs, they don't have a huge budget anyway, and when you've got so many other things to pay for, maybe like content creation is much further down your list. You know, people have got to have their wages paid or whatever. But I kind of feel, I guess, like, and a general rule that me as a streamer, and I guess like what I've found working on the other side when I'm in contact with other streamers, is that if you don't have a budget and you're going to do organic outreach, I think the main thing to realize is that a lot of the keys that you send out, they're never going to get played. People are maybe not going to redeem them, and you're sending them out trying to find the right streamers for your content, or the right YouTubers, whatever kind of content you're looking for. And so I feel like that's fine, because you're saying, here is a gift. Have this key. I think you're going to love the game. And it's the same sort of thing. Be, short, concise. This is a game you're going to love. Maybe, they've played similar things, blah, blah, blah. And you're given that on good faith, and there's no pressure. And what you might find is that creators like myself, or like you, I also do a lot of stuff that's organic, is I get a key and I'm like, oh, I love this game. And I don't have money to buy every game, so I'll play it. So that's fine. And that's the kind of creators you're looking for. However, flip side is when you're really wanting something specific from creators, you do have to pay for it, as people's times are so valuable. And it doesn't matter their size either. They should be getting paid. If you're wanting something very specific, you're wanting people to give up their time, you're wanting them to put energy and effort into your game for very specific things, then it should be paid as much as possible. And I do find that on the PR side, if you have a paid campaign and an organic campaign running side by side, so you're able to have a little bit of budget for some paid content versus also organic, that does work really well together. But yeah, so I think that's the line. Just find the right people for your game, give them a gift. Hopefully they'll make some content, because if you find the right people, you're maybe going to get some. And then if you're looking for something very targeted, then you should get your dollar bills out.
Have a bit of budget. Yeah, that's because I've always wondered that myself, just as that's really interesting to know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's look a little bit at demos now, actually, because obviously that is a big part of, if you want to catch the eye of either of streamers or just gamers in general. I'll go to you, Rachel, just because I know recently you had to look at a lot of demos.
Yes.
For something called the Indie Cup. So explain a little bit about what that is, and then I'd be interested to know, as you were looking through these demos, in your mind, what was making a good demo and how did that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Indie Cup is this initiative that just celebrates indie games. A lot of it is geographically based. So I was in Indie Cup UK, I've done Indie Cup Europe, and Indie Cup Ukraine is coming up. So very excited about that. So the idea is when you're a jury member, you get around over 100 games to quickly go through. There's normally a trailer and a description. And then that's whittled down to 20 or 30 demos for you to play. I think it's more the 20 mark. But also as well for me, I just love demos. A lot of my a good freelancing gig that I always have is demo lists when there's an X Fest and stuff. So yeah, I love a demo. I've played so many demos. I think for me, what's important for if you're deciding what part of your game to have a demo for, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just gonna do the first chapter. But often sometimes if your game is a bit slow to start, or if it's story based, you need to just going for the start sometimes isn't a good move. Find a part of your game that communicates clearly what you want everyone to know about your game, and that doesn't necessarily mean the beginning. Sometimes that can mean also mixing the structure of your game around a little bit. If you have a cutscene that you definitely want people to see, you could but it happens after the events of the demo, you can put the cutscene at the beginning and then flash back to what people will play. Really try and think about the structure of your demo, and also play around with a demo is its own thing. It's not like a slice of cake you've taken out. It's its own little cupcake that you're presenting to people. Sorry, I don't know why my brain went there. So yeah, if you think about it that way, I think you're going to grab more people's attention. Also, and this is just me, I love a demo with a trailer at the end. Oh, when I finish a demo and there's a trailer at the end, I'm just I love this, because you're showing me not only that, here's what else we got going on.
Okay.
I love links in demos. I love social links.
Okay.
The perfect length for me personally for a demo is 30 minutes to an hour. I don't mind playing over an hour, but 30 minutes is a nice little chunk of your game. I think that's the perfect amount. And I think it's also important to realize that sometimes people don't have a lot of time. So 30 minutes is like the golden spot. And then anything after is just bonus, but don't expect people to maybe start and end the demo. But yeah, I love demos. I love a Steam Next Fest. I just think they are, ever since Steam has started doing them the last couple of years, it's such a great way for me, as this must be with content creation as well, for me just to quickly play a lot of games that just interest me, and I can get a lot of coverage about like upcoming games, or you should keep your eye on this game. It's just such a good way for me as a journalist to be like, what's coming up, what am I interested in, what do I think people will be interested in. So I think events like Indie Cup, and even just chucking a demo on itch, or having a constant demo on Steam, like not just for a limited time event, is also really, really important. Because God, I play a demo during Next Fest, I want to write about it, I go back to play the demo and it's gone, and I'm like, oh, if it's out in a week, no biggie, or a month. But if it's like, oh no, you're like
you've got to get
your release date's in 2025, like please, like it's not a big deal. You can email them and ask the devs for a build politely. But just having, if you're able, I know it's a time resource, like it's a big endeavor, but just having a snippet of your game, just somewhere that people can play and interact with, is really important. Demos are great. Love a demo. I love demos.
Rachel loves demos, we found out. Spencer, you put a little face there when Rachel was talking about we're in agreement with Rachel about not starting at the beginning of the game. So what's your view then of demos, and what makes a good length and a good demo in general?
I mean, so I also do judging for IGF, so I sort of have kind of it from both sides, right?
Nice.
So I'm on one side of being the person who plays builds and demos, and
got your
all
fingers
that,
in
right?
all the pies, haven't you, Spencer?
Yeah, I'm like an octopus in the kitchen in that way. Why? Anyway, so horrible metaphors aside, I think that demos are really interesting and valuable, especially sort of since Next Fest has really kind of come into its own. Because like from our side, right? And I'm not directly involved with demo creation, right? So I don't want to necessarily be like the authoritative voice of truth on this one. They're a really, really powerful marketing beat, right? Like, especially because, it's a good opportunity to connect with people like Rachel and say like, look, this is our game coming up, right? Like, you love demos. We would love for you to have a demo. And to really kind of put your best foot forward, right? With the metaphor of the cake and the cupcake was a good metaphor, because it's not necessarily just here's an hour of your game, right? Like, we do a lot of story-based games. Like, that's kind of our whole deal. And so much of it's really common in story-based games to have like, all right, here's your lore dump at the very beginning of your game.
Yeah,
right?
like the
We're
screen.
gonna on-ramp you, right? Yeah, your big
Yes.
scroll, you're gonna put in all your proper nouns. There's
It's
gonna be a bunch of character
2039. You've crash
names.
landed in Mars and blah 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 blah.
And if you've already got someone hooked, right? If someone's already invested, they've already put their money in the game, right? They're going to stick around through your opening crawl, right? They're gonna get through your world building that is the first half an hour of the game. But if someone's downloading 30 Next Fest demos, right? Or they're walking by your booth at PAX or whatever it is, right? There's a lot of competition for time there, for attention, for energy that maybe people don't want to spend 15 minutes going through the slow start of your JRPG, learning about this small town where your character comes from that you're going to be in for 6 hours or whatever for the main game, but if you only got 30 minutes, you really gotta distill it down and get into something really, really good, really strong, that you can communicate what your game is in as succinct and as dense a way as possible. So sorry, that got really rambly by the end, but hopefully it's useful.
That's all. But it's interesting, actually. You do touch on a point. It's kind of difficult sometimes for story games to really show that the demo in a good light, because it's, how do you capture? You don't obviously want to spoil a story, but you do obviously want to give people a taste. I don't know what any of you think about that. Is it particularly? What do you do if you are a narrative game?
Yeah, well, I mean, not all of your game is all like big, story arcs all the way through. I mean, I guess it goes back to like it's your That's your like first impressions of people when they're actually playing your game as your demo. So you're just looking for enough to tease people or to go, oh, actually, I want to know. So it doesn't have to, quite always necessarily lead to the, that you don't need to get like these big points out in your demo. That's one thing that I see sometimes where the demo is so long, it's a couple of hours because it is a story driven game. But then I've played like 2 hours. I'm probably not going to buy your game because I feel like I've played it.
Yeah. So
So
that's
it just
something
has
I
to
was going
be
to
a
ask
little.
actually. Just on that point, just are demos a good idea? Conversely, we've talked about how great Steam Next Fest is, and I have seen loads of streamers. I mean, I'm guilty of it too, being like, you make a little night of it, you go through lots of demos, and people rate them and stuff. Is it actually a good idea to get content creators interested in demos? Because it's kind of spoiling the game.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. And not necessarily. I think that really comes down to, again, just like what Rachel and Spencer were saying is like, your demo is that little slice of your game. It's not like people actually playing the game. So short and sweet. I've seen some demos that are 15 minutes long and they're great. And then I want to play the full game later. So I think it's just really just about considering how you are like how you're getting people interested in your game in as little time as possible, so they feel like they've still got a little bit of something, but it leaves them wanting more. And then demos are great as well, like on the PR and publishing side. Like demos are great when a night like we're going to do, release dates, the announcement trailer for a game coming out, or there's something going along, because a lot of times when we're pitching to creators or we're pitching to press, or you've got like a lot of social media going out around like a big beat your release date announcement, having a demo available is really good, because at that point you've maybe got a lot of eyes looking at your game and they're interested, and so having like a demo available for creators to play or your wider audience, whatever. So demos are great. I love demos. But when I first started making content, I was on the fence of, I shouldn't play it. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone.
Yeah.
But my tune has changed, and I actually think demos are great, and they are becoming more popular. Well, you were saying it as well. You've seen a lot more creators, especially like through Steam Next Fest and whatnot. A lot more people are playing demos because the indie games are so massive now. Like I love it so much, and people are really content creators really care about indie devs and indie games, and so there are so many creators now that are playing these demos and playing games because they want to showcase off, like the solo devs, the smaller studios, people that have worked on games for 10 years just by themselves, and it's finally here. And so no, demos are wonderful. I love them.
And like you say,
But
and that's fun when you might have the developer in your chat as well, and you're like, oh, hey.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like so good, like with your community, with your audience, sharing all these like little games, because you're playing like maybe one game some games are 100 hours, 200 hours long, and that's fine. But then maybe for just a period of time, you're only engaging with the one game. So yeah, demos are great, a great way to showcase your game. And I do think more and more creators are, I don't know, like just kind of getting behind like, hey, here's this game, I'm loving the demo, it's coming out later. And I see creators, again, just getting more and more into that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, to speak very quickly about like spoilers, sometimes it's not bad, because I've played demos before where I'm not, because they're trying to keep things back for the release, it kind of stops you from really fully engaging with it. And I'll use a fellow traveler example. So with with 1000 times resist, there is a huge narrative point in the demo.
Please don't spoil it. I'm gonna play this game.
I absolutely will not. But the point is that when I played the demo and I finished the demo, and then there was a big narrative beat in it, I was like even more hyped to play the actual game. And I think, not spoiling the whole game, but just giving everyone like a little bit, just like a little, oh, this happens. Like, and I think that's your hook. If your game has like your narrative game has something like that, you absolutely shouldn't hold that back for the big release of the game, because sometimes that's what will get people to come back and play. Like, just give them a little something. Like, don't hold everything back, because that was the reason I was just like, this game. Oh my god! So I think that in itself, like spoilers, apps, if it's because I have heard people who play demos and then when they get to the full game, it's like, well, I've played the best part of the game. Don't do that because that's not great. But and like, thank goodness you're here. There's a certain area with certain characters. They chose a specific area in the game that they knew people who played the demo would really enjoy, and that it didn't spoil the entirety of the game. They were like, we need to get Big Ron in front of people right now, this character, because people will love him. And they were right. They were absolutely right. Like, that character is the reason I was like, I need to see Big Ron's Big Pies again. I need that character in my life. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
It is actually really interesting that you bring up the 1,000 Times Resist demo, because that was like
Yeah.
a very specific choice, right? That like
Okay.
we talked about was like, how much do you give away right in a demo? Is like, do you like, how much do you save, especially for games that no spoilers for 1,000 Times Resist.
Yes.
You can pick it up on Steam right now. But no spoilers for 1,000 Times Resist. But there's like the plot really unfolds kind of throughout the whole of the game, right? There's a lot of things that happen that kind of recontextualize what you've done before, right? And so much of I think what makes that game really good, biased, but really good, is that it has so many things kind of unfolding. And so to give away part of that in the demo of like, hey, like this is a game that will change over time, right? The story will change what you do, right? To give away sort of one of those in the demo was like a really intentional choice. And so I think that, like, don't give away everything, but if that's kind of one of the core, excuse my business words, value propositions of a title, right? Is you want to show that to the audience, to the demo players. So yeah, it's nice to see that it worked, right? Like,
absolutely it worked. My God.
Like,
everyone I knew who played that demo was just like, oh my God, afterwards. So yeah, it worked.
I'm glad to hear it. Spencer, I wanted to touch actually just quickly, because you mentioned PAX there, and I'd like to get everyone's thoughts on this actually. But and by the way, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and they'll be put through, and we'll try and get through them. We're going to wind down in about 15 minutes we've got left. But you just mentioned PAX, and I'd be interested to know what people think in terms of, are in-person expos, are they still a good way to pitch your game to the public and to publishers? Because obviously it can get quite expensive, but you are getting that feedback maybe that you might not otherwise. I'll go to you first, Spencer.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of in an interesting position with Fellow Traveler, right? Because sort of our whole deal is narrative games, and as we talked about before, it's really, really hard to show a narrative game, right? Like, I was just at Summer Games Fest back in the summer, and I was demoing Afterlove EP, right, which is sort of a pretty somber game that opens with like a major character death in about 10 minutes in, right? That's kind of the core crux of the game. And so it's really hard to show to people in these kind of really quick bites of like, here's 10 minutes, it's just enough time to get really, really sad, and then you got to shuffle off to your next appointment, right? Like, it's tough. And so like as a player, I've been on the press side before too, like seeing demos and builds and all that are really, really valuable. Being able to directly interface with developers is really valuable, but I don't think it's equally valuable for sort of everybody, right? Like, if you're doing like an arcade game or like these games that you can kind of get in, get out pretty quickly, like, I think it makes a lot more sense. But for story games, it's a little tougher, and then it also depends on like where you're from, right? Like, most of the Fellow Traveler team is in Australia, and so getting to Seattle is like not a small undertaking, right? For a lot of folks, that's a 16-hour plane ride, right? Like, it's pretty tough. So I guess my answer is like, it's valuable sometimes and sometimes not. So we're all still figuring it out, I think.
I wonder if there's also a point as well in just that sometimes you can go to these events, but you don't necessarily have to pay for the full shebang of, getting a booth and all that kind of thing. You can still go for create some, go organize some meetings and just meet up with people around the events. And that's,
we do a lot of that too, right? Like, I was just in Australia, just at PAX Oz, which was great, by the way. If y'all are not considering PAX Australia, it's great. But yeah, like so much of that is sort of just everybody being in one. Yeah, right. But it's so much of it is everybody being in one place, which is really valuable as sort of a publisher and a scout, and also just talking to people who are there. You know,
Yeah.
whether it's press or devs or just random friends. You know, it's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rachel, what do you think?
I don't know. It in person is lovely. But I went to EGX recently and there were no games there. And it was kind of sad. There was a lot of indie presence, which I love, but I do think from a press point of view, there is less and less reason to send your staff and pay for their travel and accommodation to these in-person events when you can just either ask for a build online, which is a shame because there's a difference between sitting at your desk at home playing a game, but also like being in this space where the developers are there and you can have a casual chat and like get like information that you wouldn't be able to via email or just sitting there playing the game. I think that is lost, but like just going to different events over the years, like the presence of games is like, I mean, that's why EGX was with Comic-Con this year. They like squished them together, and it is a shame, but I can see why it's going in that direction. And you know, with E3 obviously not being a thing anymore, I just think it's rip. It's just heading in that way. I always used to like it when I was working at PC Gamer and all those websites, publishers and devs would like visit the building and book appointments and then show us a bunch of games in one go. And I used to love that. But I'm not sure if they do it much anymore, just because everyone is now working from home. But I don't know, it's tough. But I really appreciated playing games in person. But you know, if I'm trying to get as much content out as quick as possible, and my boss wants me to do the same, it's easier just working from your home. So I don't know. It was a shame though. EGX was quite surprising. I was surprised at how little was there.
I know.
But indies were there. Woo! So love that.
Yay!
Absolutely.
And I guess Kaalin as well, because obviously in a weird way, it's kind of the opposite for content creators in that there's probably still a big reason to be going to these things. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. For content creators, the events can really make such a huge difference because a lot of the times you're in isolation, you don't know anyone, you're kind of just trudging along. And I talked about discoverability before as well. And if you're not able to get like kind of in front of devs or in front of other influencers, meet them in person, it can be really hard to kind of get anywhere with your content creation, or at least like within the industry, like particularly in the UK. But almost all of my opportunities and all of the friends that I have made, I've been making content since 2018, have all been met through events, and those connections have been absolutely invaluable for me to be able to make content full time. And then now on the other side with influencer relations, they are so valuable because the I guess like a key part of my job is to build these wonderful relationships, genuine relationships with other influencers, other creators, so that I know I can get, again, we talk about getting the right games to the right people, and I nurture those relationships so hard. And in-person events, I guess we talked about like paid and not paid. If there's opportunities out there that are paid, the more people I'm meeting, the more people I get to know, it's easier for me to get, paid sponsorships into their hands, and vice versa. Some games just don't have the budget.
Yeah.
And it's like that shared symbiosis. Like, I will find you the games that you're going to love. I will pay you if I can pay you. And then if you have that great relationship, when games do come out, creators are going to be more willing to play your game for free because they're invested in you, they're invested in your game, they're invested in, and those relationships are really crucial. And it's really important that they're genuine, they're organic. It's not, it just is what it is. But and I'm so sad that there's so many events gone.
I know.
But Twitch Glasgow,
Oh, yes.
I am a co-organizer with my friend Toasty. She makes wonderful content as well. It is on Saturday, so we have the
Cool.
official Twitch Glasgow community meetup in 2 days.
Oh,
But yeah, they are.
exciting.
I don't know. They've just like going to the events has just changed everything for me. Rather than just sitting like playing games, like, oh, I really like this game. I'm having a great time. Getting to these events really inspired me and pushed me forward. And like I said, I made friends that I don't know, just really hyped me up in the background and vice versa. And without that, I would never have. I did full time content creation for 2.5 years, and now I do it part time. But yeah, if I didn't go there, none of that would have happened. So
Oh, nice.
I mean, I had a really
That's
similar
That's nice.
journey into games in that same way, right? Like events
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
super important for me, kind of coming in the game.
for
So
sure.
like, yeah, it's really sad that they're kind of
Yeah,
there are fewer than there were before,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
it definitely is, because I agree. It is
Mhm.
lovely, but it is just, I
Yeah.
guess, having the time and being able to get there. But yeah, I agree. When you're there, it is lovely.
Yeah.
I've got a question, and I'll kind of put this to you actually, Kaalin, from the chat. Someone asks, but obviously feel free, everyone else, to pitch in. But is it better? And this is sort of the perennial streamer question, really. Is it
Mhm.
better to give content creators demos of games rather than full games? I just wonder, if a creator plays through a whole game, would it put people off buying it because they've seen it being played?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's
That's a
the.
tough one, right?
It is, isn't
I
it?
think it'll largely depends on the game because there's a lot of people within everyone's community who are only watching people for entertainment and they're never going to play your game. And so if someone has like an audience, there's always going to be people who also don't have time. They've got kids, they've got work, they've got whatever, but they have to live this game. They're going to live that through the content creator. And whenever I've played a game, especially like story-driven games where, you know, you're playing start to finish and you're probably not going to replay it because you kind of got everything that you need. I will always have people who are like, I am planning on playing this, so I'm going to dip out. I'm going to lurk. I'm not going to
Yes.
watch because I don't want to spoil it to myself for myself. But in reality, when that does happen, I mean, maybe only a few people leave. Most people who love games like ourselves, we only have a very small amount of time to be able to play games, and there's so many, many games, but people want to chuck people on playing something that they might like. And then if someone does love a game and they play it, and then a content creator is playing it, I do reaction stuff as well on the side. I do. I'm like everywhere. And I can never believe that, like, you know, I watched Train to Busan and did a reaction on it. And I think it's like 50,000 people wanted to see what my reaction was to Train to Busan, even though they've already seen it. So it's kind of like,
Interesting.
even so, it's like, yes and no. I don't think it spoils the game because people's audience will dip out if they plan to play it. But I have never found in my experience that it's like made such a huge difference. Overall at all. And I guess that you really do want people to play your full game because you want the content for all the time. Like you want people to play and play and, you know, other people to play and play. And when people come across your game and they think, oh, I see so many people playing this, like I don't
I'm
I mean,
missing
I
out.
have FOMO all the time. I'm 100%. So many of my games are like someone's playing it and then someone else is playing it. And I was like, I need to play it too.
It's
I don't
like
wanna
it's
miss
you do
out.
see the trends as well as a streamer. You're like, when it's Halloween, it's like
Yeah,
Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 2, and then you're
I
like,
haven't
oh,
played
maybe
Silent
I'll
Hill
also
2
play
yet.
that.
I have to go. Oh well. No, for sure. I hope that kind of answers. Yeah, doesn't really make a huge difference. People dip out if they don't want to be spoiled, but there'll be so many people who will never be able to play the game want to see it, and then there'll also be people who want to go back and watch something because they loved it so much, and they'll go to those key moments in the game where they were like, or, and they'll find that, and that's how I cry, by the way. In case you didn't know. And they'll find that
See,
back.
that's the reaction coming in. I guess we'll quickly, just because we've sort of been talking about it throughout, but sort of round off a little bit just with social media. And obviously, Colin, we've been talking about a lot about content creators, but I thought Rachel and Spencer as well, in terms of promoting through social media and kind of getting the best bits. What are your thoughts on that? And I'll go to you first, Spencer.
Whoa, social media in 2024, huh?
I know, right?
Mm.
I got my finger on the
Uh,
pulse.
yeah, who can say where we're going to be in 6 months? Who can say? You know,
Mhm.
it's really interesting, right? Because like, I mean, social media has played like such a huge role, I think, in gaming over the last 10, 15 years, right? Now I'm feeling really old, but like when Twitter was real, right? Like that was like the social media for game. But now things are shifting and kind of fragmenting, and I think a really uh interesting is the euphemism I'll use way.
Yeah.
Where now, you don't just have a Twitter strategy, right? You don't just have one thing, right? It's like, okay, what are we doing on TikTok? What are we doing? Are we still doing things on Twitter, right? Do we buy ads, right? Like, do we like Facebook ads? What are we doing, right? It's really interesting, and I wish I had a
Sure.
real answer for that, other than I think people, devs, publishers, streamers, content creators, right? Journalists, everybody needs to have a sort of a strategy that is platform agnostic, right? Because we've seen things can change so quickly, right? Like I indexed on Twitter really heavily, as a journalist and a biz dev and all that stuff, right? And now that following list does not mean very much, to me these days. And so I think that, yeah, everybody's got to like really, like an octopus in the kitchen, have their fingers in so many pies. Yeah,
Personality, I
I
love
don't
it.
know.
Lovely images for
Sorry.
sure. No, no, I love it. And yeah, I guess same with you. Same with you, Rachel. What do you think?
Oh, it's hard, isn't it? Because oh god, all the games I used to find loads of indies was through Twitter. Like I remember going on Screenshot Saturdays, I love Picture Game, all these hashtags that I used to like. I loved them so much and finding new stuff, and now I'm like, oh no, this is not a. I don't like being here anymore. So it's how, as a journalist, like how am I now going to find these games? TikTok has been a big one for me. I
Okay,
think
yeah.
people should not underestimate that platform. It's scary. I remember Europa is a game that came out recently,
Oh,
the Ghibli one. Uh, all over TikTok. I remember seeing so many viral TikToks of that game because it looked beautiful. And so I think, again, with movement instead of just screenshots, TikTok is a very great medium for like showcasing what your game looks like in movement. So, God, I hate it. But no, I don't hate TikTok, but I hate this idea that like, I don't know. I'm the same in that I almost don't feel comfortable being like, yeah, Twitter and TikTok, you need a presence on there, but you probably like
do you
you
disagree,
can't
Kaalin?
underestimate them.
Kaalin, do you think you gotta have a presence? I would kind of think you just got to do it, haven't you? Don't be shy.
Yeah.
So as a content creator, I think you have to be on everywhere. If you're one to really go from, if you want to make it your job and you want to, it's a different mindset, right? It's not the same as I'm playing with my friends, which is fine. That's fine. But if you really want to take it to the next level, you have to be on almost every platform, and you need to make content unique for that platform.
Yes.
The people, they kind of travel, but they don't travel. Like YouTube content, VOD content is very specific. TikTok content is also very specific. Live stream is very different. Twitter is very different. Twitter is how I also find. That's how people find me on Twitter to offer me sponsorships. They don't really.
Oh, it works that way around as well.
They don't find me on Twitch, and that's because when you're live, maybe, I mean, I have like not really streaming as much now, but I had like a decent sized audience, but still people are scrolling. They don't know where I am. Whereas when I found a game and I love the game, I'm like, I'm following these devs. I'm like, who's publishing this game? I'm gonna follow them too. I'm gonna find their community managers. I'm gonna follow them. And then they post things like, I don't know, like right now I've been playing a lot of Pokemon TCG Pocket, and I'm like, and other community managers who are working on games I love, they're also playing it. And I'm like, can we be friends? This is what appealed. And so I used Twitter to really build those relationships and get to know people. But you have to be making content on each thing. And Spencer had it right, is that you don't know how it's going to shift. I started out on Twitch, got Twitch partner, then Elden Ring absolutely blew me up on TikTok beyond all possibility. And TikTok was my biggest part. I literally was like, oh, just do that. Then TikTok went 10 times, 20 times my size. It just went kabam. And then I did YouTube, and then Twitch was going down, but then YouTube was like picking up. And so basically, I'm on everywhere. And how I manage my time is when something is popping off, you want to put most of your energy there as a creator, but you do not want to give up anywhere else. You still just keep everything like ticking along because, streaming to YouTube to TikTok, then back to streaming, and then now my TikTok's doing better. Like it just changes all the time, and I just keep everything ticking over a little bit.
No, I think that's
interesting.
That is good, definitely. Like, don't forget things, but you don't have to focus on everything, otherwise you'd be dead.
You don't have to focus 100% on absolutely everything, but like if something's going well, give it a little love, but you still need to water.
Yeah.
No, hold on. You still need to like whisk your eggs as an octopus in the kitchen. Make sure you're floating.
That's it. Let's build
I can't
on
believe
this.
that's the takeaway.
Let's
From this whole
go.
panel is
Right.
Octopus Kitchen.
I'm very quickly going to just go to this question we got from the chat, and then I feel we've got to wrap up. But thank you, everybody who's been sending stuff. Sorry, we might not get through to everything, but someone asks, when you've got somebody's attention, how do you keep it? What's a good way to build momentum? And I feel like maybe that's kind of a little bit what you were talking about, Kaalin, about using these different platforms, possibly. Don't just think, well, that's it now, and just let it go. You've got to keep at it, I suppose. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, on the creator side, a lot of people who email me, they're interested in one of the games we're working on. They'll follow me. If I like your vibes, and you're like a good person, fun person, you like the sparkle emoji, you like Pokemon, I'm probably going to follow you back. And then that becomes, because I'll also post some stuff's work stuff, sometimes streamer stuff, sometimes I post my cats or what I'm eating if it's particularly fun. And they'll interact with that, and then I'll see their stuff that's the same, and interact. But I suppose sometimes that can be difficult because you've got like this professional relationship. I guess like creators, streamers, it's a bit like less professional. It's more like chill. But I think it's the same for devs. And on the other side is that, particularly when you're working in indie games, like no one's going to work in a full 3-piece suit. We all like Pokemon and fun things, and maybe we're a hermit and we stay in game 10 hours a day. Like I do that as well as have a job. So I feel like it is important just to be, I guess, like I always say, just be yourself. I mean, be professional when you have to be professional, but everyone that you're emailing is just a person like me that loves games. They just wants to hear about your game, or they just want to hear about your content, and they just want to. And I think like the gaming industry is so supportive across the whole board. People really do champion each other, and people just want to shout about your game or your content if they can. Like, they just want to have your back. They want to cheerlead you. So just be chill, be yourself.
That's such a good point. I love that. I think from the press side as well, ultimately, like, we just want to chat about cool games. And so, like, I really love that sentiment of like, we do want to support the indie industry in particular when it comes to the like gaming in general. And so, yeah, like exactly that. Like, just be yourself and be cool. I remember the Fruit Bus PR was just sending me fruit puns, and I was like, this is incredible. I love puns. So it's just like, just cool people.
So I guess it's, be cool, but also not, I guess, too harassy, maybe.
Like over familiar, no.
Yeah.
A little bit chill,
Don't
right? I
email
think it's
back
maybe
to back. Wait a few days. Like, communication is fine, but sometimes like I'll get someone who's emailed, they're like, you have not answered me at time really, and it's been like 18 hours, and I'm also just like, it's a Saturday. I'm like, I don't work again till Monday. But there is nothing wrong. I don't mind when people are emailing me regularly. Like, again, it's perfectly fine. But yeah, there is like, don't be too.
Yeah, a poke is absolutely like fine. Like hey, do you mind? But only maybe once or twice. Like, do not on a Saturday. No, go for a walk, please.
And a very final question here, and this could be literally like a one word or a couple of words, but just to everybody, I just thought it'd be interesting to know you favorite indie game of this year for you guys, Spencer.
Oh.
UFO 50 feels like cheating because it's 50 games in one. Also, it's made by Moss Mouth, who also made Spelunky, so I think that's the very. I mean, sorry, it's 1,000 Times Resist. Buy it now on Steam.
Right? Yeah.
Oh no, well you can't ask me mine because mine is literally 1,000 times resist. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm piss ass, but it is.
God,
Mine would be
Rachel.
between that and Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Those
yeah.
two,
Oh, yeah.
those two are the games of the year, hands down. So I'm cheating. I have two.
And
I had
Kaalin.
50, so.
That's true.
The Crimson Diamond, and maybe that's because I got to do influencer stuff with Julia. But that aside, it doesn't matter what I game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
very good pick.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Incredible.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, guys. This has been really interesting to hear from all of you, and it's just been really great. I hope people are able to take quite a lot from that. I would just quickly, I guess, if there's social, we've been talking so much about promoting things. I should probably get you to promote yourselves very quickly. Kaalin, where can people find you?
I'm everywhere, and I'm just Kaalin. So imagine there's a wee just in front of my name. And if you're creator, dev, whatever, and you just want to chat, or you I'm super friendly. I'm just looking. My whole presence is just connecting with other people. But yeah, I'm everywhere. Feel free to reach out.
Great.
Tell me about your content, whatever.
Rachel.
Yes, I'm on social media, but I'm trying not to use that as much. But listen to Indieventure, my indie game podcast with Rebecca and Liam. We chat about indie games. We love indie games, and we play a lot of them. We release twice a month, and we're just wrapping up on our. Oh God, we're getting close to our 30th episode, which is wild.
Hey.
But yeah, please listen. We're just a group of goofballs who love indies.
Great. And Spencer.
Yeah, I'm also vaguely on social media right now. I think Blue Sky is maybe where I'm most active.
Oh yeah.
On there. Technically still on Twitter, but don't follow me there. That's the bad place. But you know what you can do? You could wishlist our games and follow Fellow Traveler on Steam. That's my brand push today.
We've all pitched ourselves, and I'm Cress Up. Hello, and goodbye. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, and roll on the rest of the talks on AdventureX. Thank you very much, AdventureX, for putting us up here, and
thank you.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.